morning.
Morning.
Baruch Hashem, I want to give thanks to Hashem for allowing us to be every morning here studying Daf Yomi. And most of all, I want to give thanks to Hashem for Rabbi Moshe Pinkel Weisblum for all the time that he spent preparing this lesson to bring to us every morning and to helping us with our walk and to understanding more the Talmud and the Tractate. So I'm very excited for completing this Tractate of Sukkah, and I learned many things in this Tractate, things that I didn't know and I needed to learn to be able to fulfill the mitzvah. In this Tractate of Sukkah, it said that every man shall sleep in the Sukkah and eat there. And I was saying why every man should sleep in the Sukkah and eat there, because I didn't understand. I figured I could come here to the synagogue where they build the Sukkah and just eat my meal every day. But it said every man should prepare his Sukkah. And also it said that every man must dwell in the Sukkah as his permanent abode. And it also be his temporary abode where he shall dwell. And it's also said that every man shall eat, drink, sleep, and his leisure time he should spend it in the Sukkah. He should also engage in the study of Torah in the Sukkah. And also it said also in the Talmud that the only time a man should dwell in his house is to cook and prepare his meal during this time. I also learned in the Tractate of Sukkah that woman, slave, and children are exempt from the Sukkah. But any child that don't require his mother help, he shall fulfill this mitzvah, the Sukkah. And I was trying to understand, say, no children should fulfill this commandment. But then it means that any child that are bar mitzvah, he should fulfill this requirement. I also learned too in a discourse with Rabbi Eliezer, where he say a man is obligated to eat 14 meals in the Sukkah. But then the sage came back and said that you only require on the first day of Yom Tov to have a meal in the Sukkah, and that day of the festival. Also Rabbi Eliezer state again that whosoever did not eat in the Sukkah that night, at the first Yom Tov, and the last night he should eat in the Sukkah. But then the sage come back and say that a twisted thing cannot be made straight, and what is not there cannot be numbered. I also learned through this tractate also that it's important that every man able to understand how to construct his Sukkah. There's certain requirement. The roof is a very important part. You shouldn't construct a Sukkah over 20 cubic feet, because then that Sukkah will be unfit. It's also said that you could prepare a Sukkah and a wagon, and it could be fit to dwell there. And also on a ship, you can construct a Sukkah, and it will also be fit. Through studying this tractate, I've learned a whole lot, things that I didn't know, and I encourage everyone to come and join us every morning and study with us and learn Talmud, which is very important for us to understand the Torah, which the Torah, if the tree alive, which we should hold on to it. So I want to thank Rabbi Moshe for helping me with my study in Talmud and understanding more the Torah. And thank my colleagues them too here every morning. And when I don't understand to something, I could turn to them and they also help. Thank you very much, everyone.
Good morning, Chag Sameach, everyone.
Good morning.
I also want to take this opportunity first to thank our fellow Talmudim who should come here every morning and study with us, help in the discussions. We talk about a lot in these classes as well and discuss a lot. I also especially want to thank my Rav, my teacher, Rabbi Weisblum, for all of the effort and time that he puts into each of these classes. Anybody, I know anybody who's ever taught a class understands that you put in probably 4 times as much as the class time into the preparation. So if it's an hour class, he's putting in 3 to 4 hours of preparation to prepare for it. This is every single day, 7 days a week. And I really want to thank him. I also want to thank the rabbi especially for his patience. I know I asked some, for lack of a better term, off-the-wall questions often, and sometimes I'll come up with questions that was on a daf we studied a week or 2 ago, and I expect the rabbi to be able to answer that, and he always does. So thank you for that, and thank you for the patience. I'm going to just kind of give you a quick rundown on the whole tractate. Tractate's made up of 5 chapters. The first 2 chapters make up more than half of the tractate, and they're a discussion of the Sukkah. As Gilbert mentioned, the roof of the Sukkah, the Sukkah, is the key to it. There's a lot of discussion as to what makes a Sukkah valid or invalid based on the Sukkah, the height, how much coverage you have, how much light's allowed through, how much shade, what kind of Sukkah is valid, etc., etc. Of course, we learned that the 3 walls, you have to have at least 3 walls for it to be a Sukkah, and how high off the ground the walls can start and so forth. In chapter 2, they discuss sleeping in the Sukkah, and if you were to sleep in a canopy bed, whether that would be valid or not, since there's a cover between you and the Sukkah. As it then goes back to another long discussion on the Sukkah. We also learn that if you're on a mitzvah mission, that's one way that you are not obligated to dwell in the Sukkah. And they have a discussion on what a person may eat outside of the Sukkah. The assumption you're supposed to eat all your meals in the Sukkah during Sukkot. What can you eat outside that doesn't constitute a meal? And we learned that one should eat 14 meals for all 7 days of Sukkot, 2 meals a day in the Sukkah. Chapter 3 starts talking about the 4 species, the lulav, etrog, and what makes them valid, what would invalidate them. It also gets into a discussion of Hallel, when it's recited during Sukkot, and also gets into a very extensive discussion on the best way to maintain the 4 species during the period of Sukkot. As we know, they will have a tendency to dry out. We learn when we can put them in water, when we can't, etc., etc. Chapter 4 starts out with the mitzvah of Aravah, Hoshana Rabbah. We learn about Shmini Atzeret as well, Hallel as it's related to Shmini Atzeret, and that we should not dwell in the Sukkah on Shmini Atzeret. It's not the holiday of Sukkot anymore. It's a separate holiday by itself. And chapter 5 gets into the water libation ceremony that during temple times that was held. And the thing I took out of that was it was a very amazing celebration. Lots of dancing and music, and it was probably one of the happiest times, I think, in the Beit HaMikdash during that time. Again, I want to thank all my fellow students for being here every morning very early, studying with us, and of course my Rav for everything and all the hard work he puts in, and like I said, putting up with my off-the-wall questions. So thank you all very much.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to wish everybody, first of all, Chag Sameach, Rabbi Weisblum, Rabbi Light, and the whole congregation. And I wanted to start off by congratulating Rabbi Weisblum, David, and Gilbert. Since we started the Daf Yomi process, there's been tireless effort by David and the Rabbi and Gilbert coming every morning, putting in so much time, and it's a big split, big merit. I know me and David can attest to when we were about a year and a half ago at Giant Stadium seeing 90,000 people celebrating a Siyum Hashas completion. So God willing, we'll be able to do that in, I think it's the year January 2020. Yeah. God willing. So I wanted to say that I have the honor of doing this Siyum on behalf of my son Avi. I tried to get Avi to come this morning, and I told him if he didn't come he'd have to fast, but he really wanted to sleep late because he was up last night for the B'dika and got very excited with that. So one of the main premises of Pesach is there's a phrase obviously everybody knows, "V'higadata levincha b'yom hahu." Basically, it's the teaching and getting the children involved in the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim and the Exodus, and the children asking the Manish Tana, the children hiding the Afikomen. So these are all different facets of Passover, trying to get children involved. And the Gemara in Sukkah, there's one Daf Mem Beis Amud Aleph 42a that talks about how far back, at what age we start teaching the children Torah and mitzvos. So I'm just going to read from the Gemara. It says, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis taught in a brisa, Belulav, a minor who knows how to wave the lulav, is obligated in the mitzvah of lulav. If he knows how to wrap himself with a talis, he is obligated in the mitzvah of tzitzis. Lishmor tefillin, if he knows how to guard the sanctity of tefillin properly, aviv lokeach lo tefillin, his father buys tefillin for him. And then it goes on to say, Yodea ledaber aviv lomdo Torah u'kriyas shema. If the child knows how to talk, his father teaches him Torah and the recitation of Shema. So the Gemara goes and it interjects with an analysis of the last statement of the Tosefta. What does Torah and Shema mean? And so Torah, what's meant here by the Torah? There's a pasuk, Rav Hamnuna answers the question and says, Torah tziv alanu Moshe morashaki las Yaakov. The father should teach his child the verse, Torah tziv alanu Moshe morashaki las Yaakov. The Torah that Moshe commanded us is the heritage of the congregation of Yaakov. That's basically the bedrock pasuk, the verse that basically expounds upon the Torah. And then Kriya Shema, what is meant by a recitation of Shema? It says pasuk rishon, it means the first verse, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So there are a lot of questions how early you can teach and get children involved. But once the children have knowledge, and at a young age, and they have knowledge and they understand what's going on in the process, then you start little by little building and teaching them and going in that process. So for the Seder, the younger children, like for example, my son Avi, he's 4, but little by little they'll stay up a little later and participate in everything in the Torah. So I think it comes full circle that this Tractate Sukkah one of the focuses is on teaching young children. Now what I'm going to do is customary in the Siyum, is to conclude, read the last portion of the Gemara. It says, the last portion focuses on the watch of Bilga. Basically, it's talking about the Lechem. First it talks about the incoming watch which divides Lechem Hapanim. And it says it divides it in the north, so that should be apparent that they are the incoming watch, and the outgoing watch divides the Lechem upon him in the south, and so that it should be apparent that they are the outgoing watch. And it says the watch of Bilga always divides the south. And in Bilga it talks about there was an incident, Amasa of Miriam, Bas Bilga, there was once an incident involving Miriam, the daughter of one of the members of the watch of Bilga, who became an apostate and went and married an officer of one of the Greek kings. And when the Greeks subsequently entered Heichal in the days of Matisyahu ben Yochanan, which was when they talked about the story of Hanukkah, Miriam scornfully kicked with her sandal on the top of the altar and exclaimed, Lukos, Lukos, ad matayata, Malacha mamonan shel Yisrael, wolf, wolf, how long will you consume the money of Israel? V'yata omed le'em b'shas hatak, and you do not stand in a time of pressing need. And when the Chachamim heard this, Kavos Tabas, they permanently affixed Bilga's ring to the floor of the courtyard, Vesatmu as Kalona, and they sealed her alcove. So that's a preface to what one of the portions at the very end of the Gemara Sukkah, and I'll just conclude with the last pasuk. It says, Tov l'tzadik, tov l'shcheno. Conversely, it will be good for the righteous one and good for his neighbor. Shenamar imu tzadik ki tov ki pri ma'aleim yochilu. As it is stated, tell each righteous man that it is good, for they shall eat the fruit of their deeds. And basically, the verse starts in the singular and finishes in the plural. it says each righteous man, and then it says for they shall eat. And this teaches that the neighbors of the righteous will always eat the fruits of their labor, and that is, they will share in his reward. So, God willing, that all our children from generation to generation, and I see the Siyum B'chorim, the generations of Annapolis here in Baltimore, and all future generations, God willing, may everybody participate in the Seder from generation to generation, the door to door, and may we ask any and all questions, because every question is a good question. Okay, Chag Sameach.
Yisher Koach.
Mazel Tov and Yasher Koach to all of you. Thank you so much. I really overwhelmed by this dream come true to see people doing Siyum Masechet. May you go from strength to strength to do more Siyumim and more Masechtot, and more people increase Torah and study together Torah. And I want to take this opportunity also to thank all the people who watch us. There are some people who couldn't make it for the shul, so they watch us, and there are people worldwide that send us comments. So I want to thank people, especially people from Boston, from California, and other places in the world that they constantly send us emails and comments, and we deeply appreciate that, and we're all part of this huge mitzvah. I'm going to do Hadran, and then it's a mitzvah to eat and drink. It's a part of the Seudat mitzvah. הדרן לך מסרת סוכה והדרך עלינו, נתן לך מסרת סוכה ודעתך עלינו, נתשם לך מסרת סוכה, לא נתשם עינן, לא בעל מעדן ולא בעל מדעת, הדרן לך מסרת סוכה והדרך עלינו, נתן לך מסרת סוכה ודעתן לך, נתשם לך מסרת סוכה ונתשם עינן, לא בעל מעדן ולא בעל מדעת, הדרן לך מסרת סוכה והדרך עלינו, נתן לך מסרת סוכה ודעתן לך, נתשם לך מסרת סוכה ונתשם עינן, לא בעל מעדן ולא בעל מדעת, ירצון פניך לנו לאבותינו, שתהיה תורתך אומנותנו בעולם הזה, ותהיה עמנו לעולם הבא, חנינו בר פאפא, רמי בר פאפא, נחמן בר פאפא, חי בר פאפא, רבא מרי בר פאפא, רחבון בר פאפא, רכיש בר פאפא, סוכה בר פאפא, עדה בר פאפא, דאו בר פאפא. הרי בנה לנו דברי תורתך בפנים ובית עמך בישראל, ואנחנו כולנו צאצאינו צאצאי עמך בישראל. כולנו יודעי שמך ולא תורתך לשמוע, ובבית יחכמני ויסודך כלולם מלי. ילדי תמיד בחוקיך למען לא יבוש, לעולם לא ישכח פעולת והמחייתני, ברוך אתה אדוני למדני חוקיך, אמן, 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 סלע ואל. מודים אנחנו לפניך, נעלו לאבותינו ששמת חלקנו משווה את המדרש, ולא שמת חלקנו משווה קרנות שלנו משכימים ומשכימים. אנו משכימים לדברי תורה ומשכימים לדברים בטלים, אנו עמלים אנו עמלים מקבלים שכר ומקבלים ואין עמלים ואינם מקבלים שכר. אנו רצים והם רצים, אנו רוצים אחרי העולם הבא, אנו רצים